Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Caroline Langford. I'm the maker and designer behind all things The Happy Home Collective. I am new to YouTube, but I'm not new to the internet. I've been sharing my work over on Instagram for over 6 years. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, Threads, and now YouTube. In this first video, I just wanted to give a quick introduction to who I am and the fiber art journey I have been on that has led me to this point and all of the things that I am now creating. This is my third take in making this video. It's just so hard to know exactly what to say and not go off on too many tangents, so I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet and mostly the chronological story, and I will make future videos going more in depth into certain moments and aspects of my journey. So about me, I am 34 years old. I live in California with my family. I've been married to my husband for over 10 years, and we have 3 kids who are 9, 7, and almost 3. I homeschool my 2 older ones. I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom, and I do all of my creating and running of my business in the pockets of time I have in my day as a stay-at-home mom. I learned how to knit when I was 10 years old. My mom bought me a Learn to Knit kit at the school book fair, and I'm not sure why we landed on a knit kit. My mom does not knit or crochet, still doesn't. So we bought this kit and I learned how to knit. I made my first scarf ever, which I still have here. I love to reflect on it. Something funny happened in this section, but that is the first thing I ever knit with these tiny little plastic needles. They are 4mm. Soon after that, I learned how to crochet. A family friend taught me the basics of crochet. I was just instantly in love with both knitting and crochet. I did it all the time. I really didn't have anyone else in my life who knitted or crocheted or was as interested in all of it as I was. So I kind of lived in a little bubble for the first 10-15 years of my fiber art journey. The only yarns I knew were what I could find at our big craft store near us. I didn't know how to read patterns. I wasn't really on the internet. I knew the proper names for a couple stitches, and everything else I just called what made sense in my head. I made things up. I learned things as I went, figured out things on my own, and that's how I knitted and crocheted for about 15 years. When I was in middle school, I made my first sale. I sold a scarf to a friend. Soon after that, another friend wanted a scarf, and it just kind of went from there, where I started selling scarves and hats to friends at school and family and giving them as gifts and doing a few markets here and there. One of my most popular designs that I sold was these crocheted hats. These are ones that I made for my kids. I probably made and sold hundreds of these between middle school into my early 20s. This was my default crochet hook for all of that time. It's a 10mm. This is what I used for pretty much everything that I made. I started my first handmade business when I was in high school. I called it the Chronicles of Yarnia. I thought that was very clever at the time. And then moving into my early 20s, at 23, I was going to college. I was studying math, and then I switched to accounting. I met my now husband. We started dating. I realized I really didn't want to finish college. Between starting to date, getting engaged, and getting married, that was about an 8-month span. And then just after being married 6 months, we got pregnant with our first child. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, and during that time, I don't feel like I did a lot of knitting and crocheting. Right before my oldest was born, I tried to start my second handmade business. It was just not the right season to be doing that, and that business did not last long at all. Our second child is less than 2 years apart from our oldest, so I had 2 under 2 for a couple months. In those first few years, I was just figuring out how to be a mom and adjusting to motherhood. Then when our older kids were 3 and 1, we moved for the 4th time in 5 years, and I was also feeling ready to start a handmade business again. This was in 2018, and I had been interested in learning macrame. I actually won a ticket to a macrame workshop by Lindsay from Tied and True Goods. She's local to where I live. So I went to this macrame workshop, learned macrame, loved it immediately. Then at the end of 2018, basically early 2019, I opened my now handmade business, which is the Happy Home Collective. Because I had just moved so many times and tore down and set up homes over and over, I was really passionate about creating happy art that brought joy to homes, and that was what I wanted to focus on with my next business. Also during that time, I finally learned how to read knitting and crochet patterns, which allowed me to learn new stitches and techniques that I hadn't learned up until that point. So I opened my shop with a few macrame items, and also during that time created my first floral wall hanging. I combined macrame, weaving, and crochet to create my floral wall bouquets, and I focused on those designs for the next 5 years. So that takes me through 2020 and 2021, in which I was growing my business, figuring out my style. People were buying a lot of art during those years. So while it was hard for a lot of other reasons, my business was growing a lot. After not really having other people in my life who were interested in fiber arts, I really didn't have a lot of exposure to what was out there and all of the yarns that are out there and what you can do with these yarns. So being on the internet, connecting with other artists, seeing what people were making was really eye-opening to what I could be making too. Then in early 2023, we had our third child. It was the hardest postpartum season I had had yet. And at the same time, 2022, 2023, my business was slowing down quite a bit. People were buying a lot less art, and I realized that I needed to start shifting some things. I had been creating my floral wall hangings for about 4 years at that point, and I was craving slower, more detailed floral work. In 2023, I made my first floral granny square project and was instantly in love with floral granny squares and started creating some of my own designs. I also at this point was starting to explore the idea of creating patterns and tutorials, which is something that up until that point I never thought that I would do. So moving into 2024, I was shifting more of my focus towards crochet. I started experimenting with my embroidered floral granny squares, and I had my first viral reel, which took my social media presence from about 22,000 followers to, as of today, over 160,000 followers. That was a huge shift for me, and something that I would say I'm still finding balance with now at the end of 2024. In June of 2024, I released my first crochet tutorial for my everyday floral trivet. After being able to connect with people over designs that I had created and seeing them make them too, I was instantly hooked in creating tutorials. Since then, I have created 2 more smaller tutorials and my embroidered floral granny squares course, and I have so many more ideas for 2025 that I'm so excited about. So that about brings us up to date. In 2024, I was focused more on my floral granny squares and what I was doing with that. I'm still creating and will be creating more of my floral macro weave style in 2025. I just love all things yarn, any way that I can mix and match fiber crafts together, and especially florals. I love all things florals. So thank you for watching. I know I left out a lot of details about different moments and shifts in my fiber art journey. If you have any specific questions, feel free to leave those in the comments. I'll definitely be creating more videos moving forward, going into more detail in some of these parts of my story. Thank you for being here, and Happy New Year!